two legendary traders were having an argument. One believed anyone could learn to trade trends, but the other said you either have the brain for it or you don't. So they did a test. They took 23 regular people, trained them for just 2 weeks on how to trade the trend, and the result, 4 years later, those beginners had generated 175 million in profits, which is 1.82 million per person per year. They called them the turtle traders, and it proved trading the trend works and it can be learned. So in this video, I'm gonna show you a dead simple way to trade the trend step by step, and then we'll put the strategy to the test with real examples. Right now, I'm going to execute a trade using what's called the first touch strategy. We'll do that first, and then we'll reverse engineer it. And now I share with you the first touch strategy in one sentence. In a strong trend, price runs away from the average, but eventually always returns to it. And that first return often creates a high probability opportunity to trade with the trend just before it continues back up. That's it. And that's the setup. So you've got your 3 things to notice: price moving away from the moving average, that return back, and then that first touch. 1, 2, 3. Whole setup right there. And once those 3 boxes are checked, you're ready to look for an entry. But if you want to trade the trend, you have to first be able to spot one. And there are 2 ways to do this. So let me show you how. The first way to tell if you're in a trend is if the lows are getting higher and the highs are getting higher. Notice this was the low, then it was here, then it was here. Therefore, the lows are getting higher, and the high was previously here, and then it was here and here. So that means the highs are getting higher. So this would qualify as a trend. But here's an easier way to do it. Just add a moving average to your chart. I like the 20 period EMA. Show 20 EMA line, and then just do a quick calculation and see if most of the candles are closing above it. Now, I have to admit, and it's embarrassing for me to say this, I did not learn my times tables in school. And because of that, I'm horrible at doing math in my head. So I created something called the TBB probability calculator to help make this easier. The answer is that when the majority of the candle closes are above the moving average, that means most likely you're in a trend. But how do you calculate that? Well, you can do it in your head, which is the hard way, or you can just use the TBB probability calculator and then look here in the bottom right-hand corner, clearly majority above. That would be for an uptrend, and the same, but in reverse for a downtrend, majority below. Those are 2 ways to do it. You do not need my indicator to do it, but if you want to make it a little bit easier, pick up my TBB probability calculator at the link in the description to make it even easier. Now, if we're going for a long trade, which means betting on the price going up, we're going to wait for the price to trend up. Then we'll wait for the price to pull back to that average. And as we said, once we get that first touch, that's our buying opportunity. In this case, because we're going long. On the other hand, if we're going short, we will look for the price trending down. And once the price rallies back to that average, then we'll get that first touch and sell short, betting on the price going down further. That's it. You might be wondering, why the first touch? Why not the second or third? And the reason is because the first touch is the strongest signal. That is the first and best opportunity. You can trade the second and third touches, but the probability starts to go down. So the first touch is going to be our focus because that is our biggest and best opportunity. Now, once we're ready to pull the trigger, we're not just going to blindly jump into this trade. We're going to wait for confirmation. And here are the 2 confirmations we're going to look for. First, we're going to look for medium or large candles. The size of the candle shows conviction. Small candles will be avoided because those show weakness, not strength. And if we're waiting for confirmation, we want to see strength. The second confirmation will be a strong close in the direction of the trend. And what's a strong close? Closing in the upper third if it's a long trade, or the lower third if it's a short trade. Those are our confirmations, and those are going to maximize our chances of success. So we will take these 2 confirmations, pair them with that first touch, and that will be the magic. What about taking profits? Well, we'll have 2 options for that. Option 1 for taking profits will be to simply go for 2 times our risk. We call that R2. That gives us a clean exit and allows us to lock in gains while making twice our risk. Awesome. Our second option is going to be trailing our stop. Now this we will utilize if we want to stay in the trend longer and capture a bigger portion of the move. So here's the complete strategy. 1, strong move. We'll wait for that price to start trending. 2, first return. That's when the price pulls back and touches that moving average and the probability shoots up. 3, we will enter on those 2 confirmations I shared, and then we will hold for that move, letting the trend do its thing, sitting back, and allow that trade to work and the profit to move. And the cool thing is you can repeat this every time you see this setup. Then let's put this strategy to the test with some real examples. We are 15 candles in without a touch of the moving average, and I promise you, we will come back to that moving average. We've got our first touch of the moving average. I promise you what happened, and now it's here. Now the first candle, too small. This candle satisfies our criteria because we have a medium-sized candle closing on its high after the first touch, plus our TBB probability indicator showing 100% of the candles closing above. That's our go sign. So we are going to enter on the close, and we will put our stop loss a couple ticks below. Then we're going to go for R2, okay? So this is the long tool, and it will tell us exactly where. We'll buy one lot and see how this goes. Hasn't stopped us out. And then a major signal, okay? And when you get another major signal, we can choose to add on. So let's actually buy another, see how that goes. Let's trail our stop slightly. Now making this trade a 3.4 to 1. Sometimes, okay, and there we go. And that's $200. Nice. Crude oil again, 5-minute chart, different day, looking very similar. Gap up open, consecutive closes above the moving average. So what are we going to do? Wait for that first touch, baby. So we've got lots of closes above. Now we've got our first touch. Amazing. Okay, now we need a strength signal, and we're going to wait. That's not going to work, but that is. Often you'll see if you get a small candle, you'll get a strength signal after that. It's wash, rinse, repeat now. Entering with one lot. If it goes our way, we will consider adding on. So there we go. We're entering on the close and we're in the trade. Amazing. Trade goes our way. We're in profit. We're in profit again. Now we're negative, but we're not going to panic. We're expecting a bounce off that moving average again. And as you can see, the line is still slightly going up. So, okay, and then we get stopped out. So what are we going to do? Panic? Get angry? Pretend that the market is against us? No, we're just going to take the loss and see what happens next, okay? You just wait and observe. Now, what we're seeing is actually a strength signal in the opposite direction. However, I'm using the Trades by Brand probability calculator. You can see it in the bottom right-hand corner, and it says that 90% of the candle closes are above the moving average. What does that mean? It means the probability is pointing up, not down. So I would not enter that candle, and we'll just watch the TBB probability. It just went from up to now tied at 50-50, okay? So that means that the probability is shifting. And notice the same exact thing that happened here is happening here. We've been away from the moving average, and now's our first touch. Boom, and there it is. Okay, cool. So let's enter in the opposite direction, doing the exact same process. All right, and we're in the trade. Amazing. We're in profit. Excellent. Now we're back to break even, slightly negative. The price almost stops us out. And boom, that's another very strong signal. And we're going to be able to squeeze out another little bit of profit, probably. Okay, cool. And then boom, price goes our way. All right, amazing. We took that loss, but we stayed in the fight and we waited for the probability to shift and then do the exact same thing. S&P 500 futures, 5-minute chart. We've got a gap down open and consecutive closes below the moving average. Looks like a downtrend to me. We're going to wait for that first touch. You guys know the routine. And there is our strength signal. Now, that is an amazing strength signal. It's a very large candle. It's closing completely on its low, plus our TBB probability indicator showing. So we're going to do our process, entering on the close of that candle. That's going to be our profit target. And what happened? Oh my God. We got immediately ripped into the trade and then ripped our stop loss. So that's going to be a loss. And what are we going to do? Freak out, whine, complain, and let our emotions get the best of us? No, we just shake it off. It's no problem at all. We're just going to wait for another touch and another signal and be patient. We have all of our criteria met, so that follows our rules beautifully. Now let's put our stop loss 2 ticks above that candle, and let's go for 2 times our risk like we always do with this strategy. Enter on the close. Boom. Target hit. The process is something we trust that will work more often than it doesn't. And you can already see what happens if we align ourselves with the direction of the trend and then execute our rules and procedures properly. S&P futures again, 5-minute chart. We've got a gap down open, as you can see here, and consecutive closes below the moving average. And what are we going to do? Wait for a first touch of the moving average. Now there is a strength signal. We've got a medium-sized candle closing in the lower third. So let's get our short tool and wash, rinse, repeat. We'll put our stop loss 2 ticks above the entry candle, and we will go for 2 times our risk, which would put us right there, entering on the close, expecting more down after a downtrend. And let's see how this goes. Okay, we're in the trade and the price races towards our target. Awesome, we're not there yet. Target hit on the second. Third candle, amazing. This is the NASDAQ 5-minute chart. But here we have a problem. Notice the price action is very far from the moving average. And if I absolutely had to trade this, I might have to wait a really long time for the price to come back and make that first touch. So instead of just waiting forever for it to come all the way back, one thing you can do is just look at different time frames and see if there's one that fits better. So if we switch to the 2-minute time frame, look, the moving average is so much closer, which will make executing this strategy that much easier. We've got our first touch, awesome, and our strength signal. Let's set it up. Oh, and 90% probability. Boom, immediately hits target. Because that was so strong, let's wait and see if we get another signal. Beautiful, let's set it up. This time using the prior candle for the stop loss to give it a little more room. Let's test some crypto. This is the Bitcoin futures 15-minute chart. We've got consecutive candles closing below the moving average, 95% closing below, says the probability indicator, which is great. We've got 1 touch there. Now we need a strong strength signal. So let's do what we always do. Put our stop right above, and our profit target's gonna go at 2x. Bitcoin again, many consecutive candles closing above 100% of the last 20, says the probability indicator. Now let's look for a strong signal. This time we're going to be looking to go long. And there it is. Medium-sized candle closing near its high. That's good enough for us. Let's put our stop loss near the low and our profit target at 2x. Let's test it with stocks. We've got Nvidia, the 5-minute chart. Gap up open, a lot of consecutive candles above the moving average. This is a very common pattern. We've seen it again and again and again, waiting for our first touch. Okay, and we've got our first touch. Now there's a medium-sized candle closing on its high. Let's enter, wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, and we're immediately stopped out. Now what are we gonna do? Freak out, complain, whine? No, we just look for the next trade. Now, what we can see here is that we actually have another signal. This is even a better signal. And let's just try it again. Profit target hit. Now let's see if we get another signal. So let's see if we touch. Okay, we touched, and then we got a very strong signal. So let's just run our process again. Let's keep it going with the stocks. We've got the Apple 5-minute chart pulled up, consecutive candles closing below the moving average, waiting for that probability indicator to shift. So the majority of the candles closing below. Now we have the majority of candles closing below. We've got our first touch, boom, and there is our strength signal. Let's go in and run our process, setting our risk, and then our profit target at 2 times that. Boom. And when we get a very strong move like that, we can often go for a second touch. So let's see if we get one. Waiting for another touch. There's our touch. Let's see if we get a strong signal. It's a very strong signal. So let's try it again. Looking at using almost the exact same candle size. Remember, if you want to execute this strategy effectively, you do not need my indicator to do it. But if you want to make it a little bit easier, pick up my TBB probability calculator at the link in the description. to make it even easier. And if you want to learn more about my strategy and how I trade, head to the Patreon, patreon.com/tradesbybren. I post live trade breakdowns there, and I'd love to have you in our private community, so check that out. Subscribe and hit that like button if you want more videos from me. And next up, I recommend you watch this video here. Click or tap on your screen and watch it now.